It's Friday. How are you guys? Sorry. I got like bones in my coffee this morning or something. No, I'm getting over this cold and it's like breaking up now, like the cough, and it's a mess. I've been sick for like a week. It's terrible. Throw it in the comment section. Did you get this weird seasonal thing where it's just like sinus, head cold? It's just terrible. But it's Friday and I'm very excited to get some rest over the weekend. We've got a few things to get through this morning though. So I can't sleep yet. Donald Trump, he's dropping the hammer here. Tina Peters. Do you guys know who Tina Peters is? I'll refresh your memories. She was huge in 2020, featured in documentaries where she revealed some, let's just say, election discrepancies. That's an understatement in Colorado. And she's a county clerk. Okay, so this is the person, the expert to consult if there's some sort of election discrepancies. She was jailed for like 9 years or sentenced to 9 years. She just got pardoned at a federal level. Now she's still in prison, jail at a state level because the state charged her too. So Colorado is refusing to let her go. We're going to get into that story this morning. That's our top story. Gavin Newsom, he handed us Republicans a GOP gift, 2028 gift, and it was a statement he delivered. So on healthcare for illegal immigrants, which is a 70-30 issue, people don't like healthcare, taxpayer-funded healthcare, going to illegals. But he, said it with his chest that he's proud that the state of California gives taxpayer-funded healthcare to illegal aliens. So I think that's a GOP gift, especially headed into 2028. I'm sure he's going to be a contender in that race. So we're going to get to Gavin. We're also going to get to this. I mean, I've got so much today. I couldn't pick what I wanted to talk about like today. So I'm going to try to get through as many stories as I possibly can. There's this Navy report, and I've been following this pretty closely. I've been following the Minnesota fraud pretty closely over the last couple of weeks. In this story, Senator Mark Kelly, he's under review. The Navy issued the report outlining possible punishments for the seditious six member. They've been deemed the seditious six. The Department of War confirmed that they do have that report. I haven't seen the report. But there's going to be possible punishments coming down the line for Senator Mark Kelly. I also want to get to Jasmine Crockett. I've been trying to get to this for like the last few days. It's just that I've been putting it on the back burner because really, like, she's not going to win. So what's the point of me even talking about it? But you need to know that Jasmine Crockett had announced her U.S. Senate run. And I thought it was hilarious. She started crying. And this is why I don't think women should be in politics. She starts crying at her announcement. Now, I don't know about you. Call me crazy. I wouldn't want a representative who just starts bawling when she announces her run for U.S. Senate. Like, I'm sorry. Clearly, you're not emotionally stable. You're not emotionally stable enough to run for U.S. Senate or to be a U.S. Senator if you just start crying at your announcement. I don't know. In Illinois news, we're going to get to Governor J.B. Pritzker, this Medicaid law. Okay, so it's an omnibus bill. It's huge. It was like 500 pages or something crazy like that. And what it does, it expands coverage. So Medicaid, people who are on Medicaid, can now not just get their abortions paid for by the taxpayer, but you can have somebody hold your hand, a doula, which is counterintuitive or like an oxymoron, a doula helping you with your abortion or helping you with your chemical induced abortion, your chemical abortion. So it also gives illegals health care. Illegal immigrants, they're going to massage the wording here. They're going to say they're not illegals, they're asylum seekers. Yeah, but there's, especially under the Biden administration, millions of people who came in, sought asylum, and all that really was, they opened up the app, the illegals app, and they said, I'm an asylum seeker, and that's all they really did. They didn't actually apply for asylum. You're automatically denied an asylum claim in this country if you border hop, by the way. So, a lot of people were coming from Romania, Venezuela, and they were coming here through the Mexico border, the U.S.-Mexico border, and they were jumping it. Okay, if you're a border jumper, you're automatically denied an asylum claim. You have to come from the country in which you are politically persecuted, religiously persecuted. You have to come from that country and file an asylum claim with the United States. You don't get to, hop around country to country. You don't get to come from Mexico into the United States and still seek an asylum claim, if that makes sense. That's how federal law, the code is written. So border jumpers at the U.S.-Mexico border, they aren't asylum seekers. They've violated the federal code and have been tossed out, or their asylum claims would be denied because it doesn't meet the criteria of an asylum claim. And we had millions of people under Joe Biden, these border jumpers who are asylum seekers, and he allowed them in despite that federal code, not allowing them to come in and seek or have that asylum claim. By definition, they're not asylum seekers. So it's these word games that Illinois Democrats play. Okay, they say that the asylum seekers, they are allowed taxpayer-funded health care through the Medicaid system, the state Medicaid system. So we're going to get into all of it here. First, I want to start with California. One of the biggest whoppers, Democrats told us during the Schumer shutdown was that they were not fighting for taxpayer-funded health care for illegals as part of their demands that they wanted in order to open up the government and end the shutdown. They said, no, we don't want taxpayer-funded health care for illegals. Here is actually what Hakeem Jeffries, the dollar store Barack Obama, the congressman from New York, said at the time during the Schumer shutdown. He said, federal law prohibits the use of Medicare, Medicaid, and the Children's Health Insurance Program and the Affordable Care Act to provide health insurance in any way, shape, or form to undocumented immigrants, period, full stop. Yeah, it does say that, but the word games the Democrats play, and I'll get to Illinois here in just a second and how they, massage the language in order to provide health care for illegals. But he goes on, he says, Democrats aren't trying to change that federal law. And he proclaimed that at the time. Okay. though that is exactly what Jeffries and his fellow Democrats wanted during the Schumer shutdown. They wanted taxpayer-funded healthcare for illegal immigrants. It was very clear that they wanted that, and it's a sore spot for a good reason. Because 70-30, okay, the American people, 70% of us say no taxpayer-funded healthcare for illegals. Why? Because 70%, I would say, of Americans understand the federal law, that it's against the law. So, this is a sore spot for Democrats because they knew that the longer the shutdown drug out, and he said that and proclaimed that, and he said, we're not advocating for that. Yes, you are. You're not calling them illegals. You're saying that they're documented, but really they came in under Joe Biden's open border policies, and they violated, the asylum claims, the work visas. They're not meeting that criteria. They are illegally here. You want to give them the health care, even though their status isn't vetted and wasn't vetted under President Joe Biden. Okay, but the American people got very frustrated. Okay, and it's 70-30. They got frustrated. Why? Because Democrats were holding up funding for SNAP recipients, for people in the military, for TSA agents. Okay, they were holding up funding for all of that stuff just to get, assurances on healthcare for illegals. So this is not something that the Democrats, usually wear proudly on their chest or like on their sleeve. Like they don't want you to know that they are funding illegal healthcare or taxpayer funded illegal healthcare. They don't want you to know that the illegals are getting your money for healthcare. Okay, because it's a sore spot for them. They know the American people are not for that. This was why Governor J.B. Pritzker in the state of Illinois, he actually rolled back a program. It was the health insurance for illegal immigrant adults. He kept the seniors on, and he rolled it back because he knows, he's going for 2028. And he needs to present himself as a moderate. And if this is a 70-30 issue, he can't be caught with his pants down giving illegal immigrants healthcare, taxpayer-funded healthcare. So fast forward to today, December 2025, Gavin Newsom, incredible, like at least J.B. Pritzker covers this up, and the Illinois Democrats, kind of cover this up, and they use the word play, and they don't outright admit that their state is giving taxpayer-funded healthcare to illegals. They know how controversial that is, so they do the word play. Gavin Newsom, on the other hand, he admitted that he was proud that his state was the first in the nation to funnel billions and billions of taxpayer dollars to illegal immigrant healthcare. Take a listen. Here he is saying how proud he is that he did that as California governor.
As it relates to undocked healthcare, yeah, I'm proud of that because I believe in universal healthcare. Others may say it. I did it. First state in the country, regardless of pre-existing conditions, ability to pay, and regardless of your immigration status. I promised that. I promoted it. I ran 3 times on it. I did it when I was mayor. People know who I am. We failed on the border. We need to own up to that. Largest border crossing in the Western Hemisphere in my state. Spent $1 billion+ to do migrant centers, try to put a lid on things. And it was quite critical, but I tried to do it in a respectful way of the Biden administration. We failed on the border. We have to own that. But we've also failed as a consequence because of that to lead the comprehensive immigration question. We've got to get the border right. Then we can get to that. But I say that to make the point. You don't need sanctuary policy in this country if we have a federal government doing its job. In the absence of that, we'll deal with the cards that are dealt. And one of the cards that are dealt is people are going to end up in the emergency room, and you're going to pay for that one way or another. I want to keep people out of the emergency room. I want to keep people healthier. I want to keep people safer. And that's why we've advanced these values. Trump uses it as a cudgel, uses it very effectively to attack our party and our values. but I'll stand up to it. And good people can disagree, but I'm very mindful.
Why did Democrats fail on the border?
Because we didn't own up to the reality. We didn't take responsibility.
But beneath it, what happened, right? Joe Biden was not a guy who didn't know that you shouldn't have, chaos at the border. You sent down National Guardsmen at a level of why for policy.
Well, I think the why was everything's in reaction to Trump. Sort of the overreach of Trump.
Yeah.
We come back and we then move 180 degrees in the opposite direction when we didn't need to or shouldn't have. And you saw mass migration across the country. It was hardly unique in the United States. You had all of the shock and supply chain shock and issues around COVID, coming out of COVID, et cetera, that created even more pressure. And then it became overwhelming. And then what also became overwhelming was this notion that we can't do it without Congress. And then Biden then proved Trump right by doing it without Congress. And in the last 6 months, we saw a significant decline in border crossings under the Biden administration that ultimately led to benefits for Trump, claiming he did it all at the end when he really closed the gap marginally. But we paid a huge price for that. And we picked up, I think, the wrong lessons in the midterms. We outperformed in the midterms. And this was a time when all Democratic governors were critical. You saw it publicly. And then they did better than we all expected. And they said, why don't we just focus on these other issues? Mistake.
My God. So ridiculous. He says, I'm proud of that. Giving illegal immigrants healthcare. It was revealed back in March that the state of California was exploiting a loophole. Okay. As I said, it's against federal law. Actually, as Hakeem Jeffries said, it's against federal law to give taxpayer-funded healthcare to illegal immigrants, people who are not here in the country legally. Now, here in the state of Illinois, the Democrats love their wordplay. They call them asylum seekers. They say that they're fleeing, persecution. Those with, human rights atrocities in their countries, they can come here into the state of Illinois and get taxpayer-funded healthcare. And they use the wordplay that what they are, they're illegal immigrants. These are the people who hopped the border under the Biden administration. They clicked a button on a phone app and they said that they were asylum seekers. A lot of those asylum claims are being denied by the Trump administration and said, hey, actually, you're not an asylum seeker. Okay, you jumped the border. You're not fleeing religious persecution. You are actually a Venezuelan gang member. And you hop the border, and we are sending you back to Venezuela. That's where we're at right now. Now, in California, it's a little different than Illinois because Illinois understands the 70-30 issue. And I think Gavin Newsom understands it too, but he's just an idiot. Okay. So he's like saying it with his chest that we give taxpayer-funded healthcare to illegals. What they did back in March, and this was found out, that the state of California, they were exploiting a loophole in Medicaid to help fund healthcare for illegals through Medi-Cal. Now, Medi-Cal is the state's Medicaid program, okay, and it is open for legal California residents, okay, and it is paid for by a mixture of state funds and federal funds. But because there's federal funds there, it's federally prohibited for illegals to get that taxpayer-funded healthcare. They had to kind of exploit a loophole, the state of California. And what California was doing was they were funneling billions of federal taxpayer dollars into paying for illegal immigrants' healthcare. And they were exploiting a loophole. This is what Paul Winfrey says, the president and CEO of Economic Policy Innovation Center. He told this to Fox News. He said they were exploiting an existing loophole within the law. States can do these provider taxes to funnel money back to the state that they are using to pay for to put illegal immigrants on healthcare. So that's what he says is quite literally going on. So what's going on here is the state is collecting taxes and it's paid for. Medi-Cal is paid for by a combination of state funds and federal funds. but they're kind of like putting it into the state, and then the state is just ultimately paying for Medi-Cal, kind of. So the HHS Inspector General report from May of 2024 found that California improperly claimed $52.7 million in federal Medicaid reimbursement for these payments to be made on behalf of these non-citizens with unsatisfactory immigration status. Okay, so the money was allegedly paid back to the feds the following month. So May of 2024, and then the following month, they paid all that money back. The HHS Inspector General found all of this out, that they were kind of using this loophole. And you're not supposed to use those federal funds. Definitely not, because it's against the law federally to provide taxpayer-funded healthcare to immigrants. And they were using a loophole where it wasn't really federal funds anymore, and it was all state taxpayer funds. But it really wasn't. They were doing funky things with the money. So back to Gavin Newsom's most recent boast here. There were some hot takes on social media that I want to get to here on X. And I'm going to share some of the responses here. I think they're funny. So here's one reaction on X. Quote, "I don't get how Trump is lying about Democrats giving illegal immigrants health care if Dems in America's most populous state actually did it. And here you have the governor boasting that he did it. He goes, I'm proud of that." So, like, how do they say that Trump is lying when he says that Democrats are giving illegals health care, when you've got Democrats like Gavin Newsom out there in an interview saying, yeah, I'm proud of doing that. So there's plenty of problems with Gavin Newsom's little interview there. One is that it isn't getting enough discussion that Gavin Newsom wants to take credit for taxpayer-funded healthcare for illegal immigrants, but he wants to sound reasonable on the border here. Okay, but he doesn't acknowledge that the open border and Joe Biden caused the having to need to fund the healthcare for illegals. So, yeah, that's ridiculous. And like I said, this is a 70-30 issue. I'm going to share this tweet with you. 71% of Americans favor removing illegals from Medicaid and adding work requirements. And he says, we failed at the border. We need to own up to that. But you don't also have to give them taxpayer-funded health care. You have to call out the border and assist the federal government in their deportations. And he and J.B. Pritzker, they have been resistant to or not working with the federal authorities. So Gavin Newsom, what he's doing here is he's buying votes with federal funds. That's what he's doing. So one thing that undoubtedly will come out of Newsom saying the quiet part out loud is that, and congressional Democrats lied here. They repeatedly lied, and they lied about their desire to fund healthcare for illegal immigrants. And him coming out and saying this, we see the lie. It's not going to be good for 2026 Democrats in the midterms that Gavin Newsom said this. Okay, they Hakeem Jeffries, they have been trying to hide the fact that they love giving taxpayer-funded healthcare to illegal immigrants. So his statement here is probably going to be used in GOP ads during the 2026 midterms, during the 2028 presidential election, where I'm sure Newsom is going to announce that he's going to be a candidate himself in that election. So, yeah, it's fascinating to me that Gavin Newsom took credit for this out loud. That's not going to do well for Democrats who try to shy away from this kind of thing. And I will get to Illinois. There's this Medicaid omnibus that they just passed. And JB, unlike unlike Gavin Newsom, at least tries to pretend that he's not doing this. He even rolled back the healthcare for illegals in this adult program. He left the seniors, on this program, but as a way of cleaning up the budget, because the estimates exceeded what they thought, he rolled this program for illegals to get healthcare. And, you'd think, oh, he rolled it back. He must be a moderate guy. But Gavin Newsom here is just saying it out loud and proud that he did it. And then he tries to say, oh, well, I had to do it because the border was open and that's on us. But I had to do. No, it's against federal law to do it, man. And the way they used that loophole, they made it look like they weren't using federal funds and they were just using the state funds. Still against federal law, because federal law is very clear about how, hey, you can't use any funding, taxpayer funds for Medicaid, Medicare, and these are programs that are combined, these aren't just state programs, the Affordable Care Act, these are federal programs, and there's a combination of state dollars. So there's no way really around it. Okay, but they were trying to get around it through this loophole where they were disguising the funding as just state funding. And you can't do that. These are federally and state funded programs, Medicaid, Medicare, the Affordable Care Act. So they were doing shady stuff. Okay. They were exploiting a loophole within the law, and they were funneling billions of federal taxpayer dollars into paying for illegal immigrants' health care. And that's wrong. The HHS, they found that out. And here's how I know that California knew it was wrong. They paid that money back. It was allegedly paid back within the next month after the Inspector General report. So wanted to cover that. I do want to shift gears. I've got a lot of stories to get to this morning. Let's get to the U.S. military. They are potentially going to issue punishments through this report, recommend punishments through this report, the U.S. Navy, for Senator Mark Kelly, who is one of the now nationally known seditious 6 Democrat lawmakers. So anybody who has been anticipating an announcement here from the U.S. military about this, punishment, what are they going to do about the seditious 6? I've been biting my fingernails waiting for an announcement. I'm not happy with the Trump ecstatic about the Trump administration. He's doing great things, but I think he needs to arrest JB. He was bold here with his new law where you can't go, the federal agents can't go and arrest illegal immigrants in places like daycares, hospitals, universities. He crafted that legislation, passed the bill. Democrats, Illinois Democrats, and then he signed the bill into law. That's very bold. And I think that the longer we go on here, the Trump administration, without making those arrests of Brandon Johnson for quite literally being rebellious, United States, against the United States. We are the United States. You don't get to operate I get states' rights, but you don't get to operate outside of federal law as a member of the United States, Illinois. And you've got Mayor Brandon Johnson, JB. They keep avoiding cuffs somehow. The Trump administration needs to arrest them. Otherwise, if you just do a little bit and you send a little bit of National Guard and you do a little bit of deportations, they actually just issued a video, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. It was a funny video. It was 600,000 illegals deported. And then I think that it was 1.9 million had self-deported. That's not enough. That is not enough. We're talking 10 million people border hopped, probably more under the Biden administration. So that's not enough. We've got to do better. And by you not arresting the Trump administration, by not arresting JB and Brandon Johnson for really seditious behavior, seditious, treasonous behavior, rebellious behavior, offenses, not even behavior, offenses, outright being treasonous and not abiding by federal laws. And by him not doing that, it's emboldening them to say, hey, look how far I can go. It's kind of like a toddler, right? If you don't punish them right then and there, they're going to keep going further and further and further and pressing your buttons. So Trump has got to arrest those guys, much like Pete Hegseth has got to issue some sort of punishment. And I believe the punishment should be life in prison, which is what the military code talks about. Because we're not at a time of war, it's not death. Okay, that's like Mark Kelly's offense here, and these 6 Democrats, we're closer to hearing some news about what their punishment is going to be. And if it's not life in prison, I'm not going to be satisfied, because the military code is very clear about seditious behavior or seditious offenses. If we're not in a time of war and you are telling people not to follow orders from the commander-in-chief, that is life in prison. Now, if we were at a time of war, say with Venezuela, and you did that, then you would die. That's punishable by death. So I know the military code here, and if we don't punish these former service members and intelligence agency staffers for the release of this video where they were encouraging current military members to not follow lawful orders, what they call the illegal orders, if we don't punish them, what the hell? We don't even have a country anymore. We are no longer the United States of America. The chain of command doesn't mean anything. So we're a step closer to hearing some news on this. The Arizona senator, he was among the lawmakers who issued this video urging current members to not follow Trump's orders, the commander-in-chief. So Kelly was kind of picked on. I don't know why they chose Kelly over all of them. But Kelly was the one who the Pentagon kind of singled out here. And I'd imagine that this is just the starting line, right? Eventually, maybe the other 5 of the seditious 6 will get what's coming to them. But he was singled out, and there was a review of his conduct. They are reviewing serious allegations of misconduct. The U.S. Navy, at the direction of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, he ordered the Navy through a memorandum in late November to take a look into what that video was all about and to take a look into his conduct. And they have to submit, the military, that Navy, they have to submit their findings and recommend punishment. Okay. So I hope that this is just the start and we go after the rest of the seditious 6. Okay. And if anything other than life in prison, I'm not going to be happy. Okay. So it begins now. If you've been awaiting what's happening with that, the Department of War confirmed that they have the report from the Navy leadership that conducted this review. The military branch's general counsel determined possible punishments for the retired naval captain Mark Kelly. According to comments from a department official to The Hill, the U.S. Navy has submitted its report on potential punishments for Senator Mark Kelly. He's a Democrat from Arizona, over a recent video where he and other Democratic lawmakers told U.S. service members to disobey illegal orders. Not illegal. 1798, the Alien Enemies Act was revised via executive order by President Donald Trump, deeming Venezuelan gang members or Venezuelan immigrants as a threat to national security, as a terrorist group, and that allows him to issue these strikes. Okay, Obama has done thousands upon thousands of strikes, even killed people. I believe that was in U.S. citizens in Yemen. Okay, issued strikes that killed U.S. citizens. Okay, so if he was allowed to do that, Donald Trump surely he can issue strikes on Venezuelan drug boats, Venezuelans whom he, through an executive order, deemed terrorists. Okay, so completely legal. The report by the Navy, which was ordered by the Department of War, Pete Hegseth, was sent over to the Pentagon Office, Office of General Counsel, where they are providing legal review and input. So the Hill sought reaction from Senator Mark Kelly on the report, and they received a statement via a spokesperson from Senator Mark Kelly's office. Here's the statement. Quote, "It defies belief with all the threats facing our country that Pete Hegseth initiated this ridiculous process to try to intimidate Senator Kelly from saying something Pete Hegseth himself has said repeatedly." Don't know what he's referring to there. It's not like Pete Hegseth has come out and said that President Donald Trump is issuing illegal strikes. I don't know what exactly what that part of the statement means. So the report, the Hill report, continues with more from the statement. Senator Mark Kelly was never contacted or notified about the report. It sure as well. I hate that. It's so funny because like that was plastered all over news outlets. Like, how did you not know or weren't notified, Senator Kelly? But whatever. It sure as hell won't stop him from doing his job representing Arizona, whether that is voting today to lower healthcare costs or make sure our service members have what they need to do a very difficult job. Spokesperson said in the statement, adding that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and President Donald Trump could do themselves a big favor and learn about our country's history and Constitution and the rule of law. You know, Senator Mark Kelly, this was really funny. The video, I'll have to pull it up again. I haven't played it in a while, but the video from the Seditious Six, they referred to this bit of history. This was it was a war in wartime. It was shortly after the American Revolution. We entered the War of 1812, and they referred to in this video this moment in history, like what is it, down with the ship or stay with the ship or something like that. Man, now I'm forgetting what the slogan was. But anyway, there's this slogan like stay with the ship. So there was this military like captain, a naval captain in the War of 1812. And they were going at war with the British because after the American Revolution, like they need to brush up on their history, the Democrats. Okay, don't lecture Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth about not knowing history, because you guys issued this video or sent out this video definitely not knowing history, because you used this point in history as a jab to the Trump administration. And it didn't even make sense. It didn't hit because you guys obviously don't know. So this slogan, you know, derives from it. There was a flag. It's like down with the ship, or so. Don't give up the ship. Thank you, Brian. You're the best. Throw it in the comment section. Yes. So don't give up the ship. So this military captain in the War of 1812, they're going after with the British because the British weren't taking us seriously after the American Revolution. They started doing all kinds of trade wars with us and not taking us as a country seriously. And they were bullying us still. So we went into the War of 1812. And there was this battle off the coast of Boston. Sorry if I get some of these details wrong. I'm going off memory here. So there was this battle with the British, and there was this amazing naval captain, and he, you know, there's all this canister shot, this huge like cannonball shot, like that's how big the canister shot is. Okay, and it's going into the ship, and it's, you know, gonna sink the ship, and The guy like has canister shot all up in him. Okay. And he has his little like mentee there on the ship, a young soldier. And this young soldier, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting their names right now. I don't have them pulled up. It's hard to remember these names, but the young guy is there with the captain of the ship, and he's full of canister shot, the captain. And he says to the young fellow, don't give up the ship. I'll fast forward. There's another very pivotal battle. This was a victory by us. So we lost that battle where the captain died from the canister shot. Okay. We eventually lost that battle, but he said very famously, don't give up the ship. And in a different battle, and this was in the Great Lakes, this young sort of mentee of the captain goes to war, or goes to a battle with the Brits again, and he wins. Okay, ultimately, there's really cool military tactics that happened with like little tinier boats. They, dropped the boats in, and then they, went and blew up the ship. It's pretty cool. But that ship that they had on the Great Lakes, our ship, the American ship, with the mentee leading them, had a flag that said, don't give up the ship. And he used the last words really of this captain, of his, mentor. And he flew that. So I bring that up because, like he says, learn about our country's history. They issued this video urging these military members, current military members, to not follow the orders of President Donald Trump. And then they made reference to this little part in history in 1812. And they don't even understand the history, obviously, because what Donald Trump is doing is he's blowing up ships of a foreign country who's not taking our country seriously. Okay, so Donald Trump is doing exactly what we did in the War of 1812 against the Brits. Like, if you think about it, it's just kind of history repeating itself. The Venezuelans country does not take us seriously when we say stop shipping your fentanyl here. Obviously, they're not taking us seriously because these are not fishermen boats. Okay, these are boats full of drugs. Intel tells us that these are boats full of drugs, Venezuelan gang members. Okay, if they didn't have that intelligence, they know exactly who's on these boats. Okay, if the U.S. military didn't have that intelligence and they were just, in fact, blowing up fishermen, okay, then that would be problematic. But that's not what's happening here. Okay, they're issuing strikes against Venezuelans. And question the motive here. What would motivate Donald Trump to blow up innocent fishermen in the Caribbean? They're coming to the United States. What motivation? Like, they honestly want you to think that Donald Trump is doing that. Obviously, they have intel that this is drug boats and drug dealers bringing in drug suppliers bringing in fentanyl and opioids and cocaine, okay, into the country. So, they're saying like, oh, you need to brush up and learn about our country's history. You guys issued a video and you guys don't even know what the hell you're talking about, because really, if you knew what Donald Trump was doing, it really mirrors what those captains did back in the War of 1812. Right? So I don't think they know history. But they were telling the current military members in this video, like, don't give up the ship. Don't follow these illegal orders of President. Don't give up the ship. Okay. Anyway, so Senator Kelly, if anyone who has been following Senator Kelly and the Seditious Six in this release of this video, suggesting that current U.S. military members, disregard orders from the commander-in-chief, you're not surprised by this statement. Okay, this statement wasn't even given by Senator Kelly himself. This was given by a spokesperson. And they used it as really like a posture. I lower health costs and I'm making sure our service members have what they need to do a difficult job. And really, Pete Hegseth needs to brush up on his history. And this is what his spokesperson said. You're not shocked by this. I know you're not. We'll have to see where things go from here. But like I said, if it's anything less than life in prison for these 6 lawmakers who made that video, I'm not going to be satisfied, because military code is pretty damn clear on what the protocol here is. If you are urging military members to disregard orders from a commander-in-chief, lawful orders, which these are, if you are urging them, then that's life in prison, even if they are later deemed illegal. Say Donald Trump is blowing up fishermen. Okay. And, he has no intel at all that these people are bringing fentanyl or cocaine into the country, and he's just striking people for fun. They truly want you to think that Donald Trump is like that. Okay. Say we find that out. There's actually a lot of protection for U.S. members who follow illegal orders if they believe that it's lawful. Like on its surface, like, hey, they tell us to issue these strikes and we're blowing up these boats. We have no reason to believe that we don't have the proper intelligence, to do this. Okay. We've got no reason to believe that this is not lawful, even if it's deemed later that it isn't, which it is. But let's just play devil's advocate here. The military members are exempt from any kind of punishment. Okay. You're even, to an extent, supposed to follow unlawful orders as a U.S. military member. That's how important this chain of command is. Okay. You're supposed to follow these orders blindly, pretty much, unless you know for a fact that, these are just fishermen. Okay, so I highly doubt they're issuing strikes without the intel. But if these aren't just fishermen and Donald Trump said, hey, this is fisherman Johnny, and I can't stand him, we're going to blow him up. He's just, a U.S. citizen or whatever. I just don't like him, and I want to, hit the button because I'm a crazy dictator, crazy guy. President Donald Trump, and I want you to issue this or conduct the strike. And Donald Trump tells you this, or like your chain of command tells you this, and that's illegal, then there could be potential punishment for you, okay, as a U.S. military member. But even to an extent, you have to even follow illegal orders if they on the outside look legitimate. Okay, don't know where we're going to go from here on that, but I'll keep you updated. Like I said, I want to see them in life in prison. If we were at a time of war with Maduro, with Venezuela, which, I don't know, regime change, I don't know. If we were at a time of war, these seditious 6 would actually be looking at death, punishment by death, because military code says very clearly, if you urge U.S. military members to disregard orders and we're at a time of war, then that's punishable by death. That's treasonous. And yeah, this is very serious stuff. And, I'm just not, I don't think that the Trump administration is taking this stuff seriously. They're not taking seriously that Governor J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson are in open rebellion of the United States right now. They don't take it seriously. Why? Because they're not cuffing them. We're not, I'd love to see the punishment here, but I swear if it's like, oh, Mark Kelly, we're going to have him pay a fine. Yeah, I won't be happy. Anyway, can anyone name one thing that Representative Jasmine Crockett has done to make people she represents better off? People hate Jasmine Crockett's district, by the way. People hate living there. It's a hellhole, the crime. Economically, it's terrible. So she started crying here. And I haven't shared this with you yet. It was a few days ago, but I haven't even gotten around to Jasmine Crockett because she's not going to win. Okay. This is Texas. We're talking about 2 senators from Texas, U.S. senators from Texas. So I think, 2 senators. And the people of Texas hate her. I would say a majority of the people in Texas hate Jasmine Crockett. So nobody can name me one thing that she has done to improve her district, her current district, in Congress. Okay. She just goes after President Donald Trump all day. She spends most of her day going after President Donald Trump. And when she's not going after President Donald Trump, she's going after you, lecturing you about your white privilege, lecturing the people of Texas about their white privilege and their misogyny and their homophobia or whatever the hell. Okay. So when she's not going after President Donald Trump, she's going after you. This is why it's super bizarre that she decided to run for U.S. Senate. Okay, there's 2 senators. And let's face it, Texas is red. Okay, so she despises a lot of people there in Texas, lectures them on white privilege. Texans love their guns. She's anti-gun, right? And she despises many of the people she will never even pretend to represent. She doesn't even try to make an effort to pretend like she's representing them. She represents illegal immigrants, not the people of Texas. Okay, so here she is crying. She cried at her announcement. Another reason why women probably shouldn't be in public office, but take a listen.
Right now, many people wonder why I jumped in this race so late, and I just want to be clear that this was never my intention. This was never about me. I never put myself into any of the polls. Listen, my question was, which congressional seat would I be running for? And for Texas 30, I love you, Texas 30. Okay, I'm gonna finish. But the more I saw the poll results, I couldn't ignore the trends, which were clear, both as it relates to the primary as well as the general election. I could have played it safe and continued serving in the United States House of Representatives for as long as my constituents would have me. But I don't choose to do that. Because Texas, this moment we're in now, is life or death.
Literally starts crying. Okay, she cried when she announced, and I think it's going to be really funny because those tears are nothing compared to what she's going to shed when she loses the U.S. Senate bid. So funny. Things tend to circle back like that. I do want to share one more clip of Jazzy, as somebody so lovingly called her in the comment section. Here she is practicing her fake accent. So you ought to love this one. Take a listen. Here we go.
When Texas turns blue, it won't be because of any one candidate, but because of each and every one of you doing your part. Turning Texas blue is what I want to talk to y'all about today. Now, there are those that say, ain't no way, we done tried it 50 kinds of ways. Let me be clear, y'all ain't never tried it the JC way. We used to telling us what I can't do, but they have no idea what Crockett's crew will do. And so I just want to be clear for all the haters in the back, listen up real loud. We gonna get this thing done.
We gonna get this thing done.
So they tell us that Texas is red. They are lying.
They're lying. Okay. Yeah, no, Texas is red. And you're not going to win this U.S. Senate race. It's silly. Yeah, she was doing her little fake accent in the back. Or for the people, the haters in the back, we gonna win. Jasmine Crockett is such an elitist. If you looked into her background, she went to the top of the top schools, Ivy League schools, very, very wealthy woman. And it's kind of sad because she has all this privilege and she operates Texas 30 there, her district that she loves so much that she's like crying over like leaving this district. Her district hates her. So this district is impoverished. It's sad. The businesses are boarded up. It's very similar. I've been to Michigan, Detroit, Michigan. Really, really sad. You've got barbed wire around businesses because people break into the storefronts, what little are left, at night and steal stuff. So Jasmine Crockett's district is a hellhole. Although she has all this privilege and comes from this background, this very wealthy background, she can't be bothered to do something right by her district and provide them economic prosperity. According to NBC, Representative Jasmine Crockett launched her run for U.S. Senate early this week on Monday, shaking up the Democratic primary just before the state's filing deadline. Crockett joins the race to take on GOP Senator John Cornyn, who is facing multiple primary challengers himself. The two-term Congresswoman's decision comes as her Dallas-based House seat was redrawn in a GOP-led redistricting effort. So she goes, I was going to play it safe, and I was going to serve in the district as long as they would have me. Okay, well, the only reason why you had that district was because it was gerrymandered for a Democrat, and then with the redistricting that Texas did, it included and was more representative of Republicans in the state. So you were going to be ousted, okay? You were not going to play it safe. Like, you were either your political career was done or you announced your U.S. Senate race, okay? So this is not like some big sacrifice that she's like doing here in her political career, okay? Her political career was over. This is her only shot, and here's where she's going to go next. She's going to lose her U.S. Senate race, and then she's going to wind up being a talking head on MSNBC or something, okay? That's what's going to wind up happening, okay? So here's what she said. She said, there are a lot of people that said, you got to stay in the House. We need your voice. We need you there. She told her supporters when she launched her campaign on Monday night. And I understand, but what we need is a bigger voice. If by bigger voice you mean arrogant, imbecile, privileged, who won't do anything beneficial for her country, won't do anything beneficial for her district, then sure, yeah, whatever, bigger voice, we can call it that. But I highly doubt that this is what the people of Texas need or want. Okay, people of Texas don't need her district to go statewide. Okay, she's going to be representing the Texans. There's two senators. There's a very crowded primary. This will tell you, the political landscape in Texas. There's a very crowded primary for John Cornyn, who is running. And crowded primaries like that, like in Republican, like the Republican side of things, the Republican primary, that tells you that that's going to go to a Republican. The two Senate seats are going to go to a Republican. Like, so Crockett, she's got a little slogan here, Texas tough, and she's positioned herself here and pitched herself as the Democrat best position. Now, she's got primary challengers too. Not as crowded as the Republican primary for this U.S. Senate seat. But she has positioned, she says that she's the best position to get turnout. I would say that, yeah, she's going to run her Democrat primary, but she won't make it past the general. Because she's so influencer-esque. Okay, that's, of course, she's going to drive out turnout because she's like a household name at this point because she's so loud. And she says that she can build a, quote, strong multiracial, generational coalition, whatever the hell that means. And she pledged to focus on addressing the cost of living. She hasn't done that in her own district. Like I said, it's a hellhole. People are not economically better off there in that district in comparison to other parts of the state. And she wants to hold President Donald Trump accountable. She is going to make her entire campaign, and I already saw some of the campaign videos. She's making her entire campaign about Donald Trump, Orange Man bad. Okay, she's going to make her campaign all about holding Donald Trump accountable. She does realize that Texas voted for President Donald Trump, right? That probably isn't the best. If anything, if you're going for this U.S. Senate bid, you want to pull back a little bit on the crazy liberal act, okay? The radical liberal act. She refuses to acknowledge that Donald Trump is what voters want, specifically voters in Texas want. And she's going to sit there and fight for a strong, multiracial, multi-generational coalition, whatever the hell that means. Okay, so she's ignoring what Texans actually want. Not a good look going into this U.S. Senate race. So it's cute that Crockett thinks that she's going to appeal to enough voters to win the seat. I think it's adorable. But I think we all know what the outcome's going to be. And, she was crying at her announcement. I don't think she's going to be crying, happy tears at the end here. I think she's going to be crying, but certainly it won't be happy tears at the end of this general when she inevitably loses. All right. Smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. I so do appreciate it. Want to get to some of your comments. Danny, he says, Democrats are right. Trump needs to go after bigger fishes like their partner in big drug trade, crime, profits in crime, Maduro. Yeah, so I see what you're saying. The Democrats are saying that, Donald Trump shouldn't be issuing these strikes against the Venezuelan drug boats, okay? And to an extent, I kind of agree. And here's why. The regime change, Maduro going after Venezuela. Venezuela is a small fish, as you put it. The big fish would be the people who are supplying that fentanyl to Venezuela, and Venezuela is peddling the drugs into the United States. What country is supplying the fentanyl? The Chinese manufactured fentanyl, okay? That is what's going on. And Donald Trump, he has been trying to choke out China with these tariffs, okay? And I think he's doing a great job. He's, using some of this tariff revenue now to give payments to farmers in the form of a farmer assistance program. So he's making sure that our farmers aren't, left behind while he goes after, China via these tariffs, which needs to be done. It's kind of like eating your vegetables. Like we have to do it. I've told you guys for years that we shouldn't have property taxes, income taxes. We should have, sales tax, consumer-based taxes. And this is the way it was in the days of Alexander Hamilton. And he was a big proponent of this, Alexander Hamilton. Tariff revenue and sales taxes, consumer-based taxes. Like that is what we should get back to. And that's what President Donald Trump is trying to do, because for years, we haven't held anybody accountable. We haven't had fair trade going on, and the United States has been spat on by these countries. And we're not making anything here. And really what the tariffs are designed to do is to try to get domestic production here, where we're not relying on China for absolutely everything. So it has to be done. And Donald Trump made a move to provide assistance to farmers who are feeling the effects of the tariffs. Okay. The soybean farmers, China losing them as a consumer base is a lot. Like we're not exporting to China, the Chinese. There's billions of people there. Okay. And that's hurting the farmers. They're not making as much money. So what Donald Trump said is, well, we're going to take the tariff revenue and we're going to give you assistance while I try to choke off China, because this is not just about economy, revenue generating. This is about national security. We can't have everything coming from China, and we can't be so reliant on China as a consumer base either. It's just not in the best interest of our national security. Not to mention, China is the reason why we've got this drug epidemic here in the United States. They're the ones manufacturing the fentanyl. And they're giving it to these South American countries, and those countries are getting their TDA members, their Trinidad Guagua Venezuelan gang members, who are just proxies of China, and they're shipping it into the United States. So you're exactly right, Danny. Go after the big fish. And I think Donald Trump is doing that, choking them off economically, fighting a war with China economically as far as tariffs go, trying to increase domestic production, trying to beat them at AI. So I think Trump is doing that to an extent. And I agree with the Democrats slightly, where, okay, you're going after the Venezuelan drug boats. That's fine. But going in and doing a regime change with Maduro isn't going to do much, because what will happen is China will go in, whatever guy we put in there, and replace Maduro with, he's just going to be corrupted by China as well. And we're going to have the same thing over and over and over again. If you don't take out the big fish, you're not going to see any success. All right, let's talk about President Donald Trump and the redistricting thing. Okay, Indiana. Subscribe to the channel. Be sure to share this out with a friend. We're getting so close to 1,000. Just want to make it to 1,000 before Christmas. If you guys want to support the program, you can always send your super chats. I take super chats at the end of the show. But you can, send super stickers. But you've asked me about Patriot Pump. Patriot Pump, it is a ministry. Patriot Pump Energy. We try to get into gyms, get not only this product into their hands, but we try to connect them with Bible studies and ministries locally, to benefit men, not just physically by taking our product and getting into the gym and working on themselves physically, but try to teach young men that it's not just about your physical man, it's about your spiritual man. And you got to exercise both and get into the word. So we try to connect young men with various Bible studies and ministries in their area, their local area. And that's a lot of work. It's something that we are dedicated to. So if you want to support that ministry and this program, visit patriotpumpenergy.com and go ahead and use promo code conservativecat. You get $10 off. So let's get to Indiana Republicans. They voted yesterday afternoon and they rejected the map favored by the White House. Trump has repeatedly called on Indiana, and I'm kind of shocked by this. I'm shocked, but I'm not, because people have always said, oh, Indiana, it's like deep red. And, me being from Illinois, I know it's not. Okay. So the final vote took place yesterday. And get this, there were 19 people in favor of the maps, and there were 31 against the measure. So Republicans there in Indiana currently hold a 40-10 supermajority. So yes, it is deep red, but I'm going to say it. Northern Republicans are not actually Republicans. Like, being down here for just a couple of weeks, South Carolina, I can see the difference. Like, Republican up north in Indiana or Illinois, they're not actually Republicans. They're more like Southern Democrats. Okay. So I'm not shocked by this news. Not incredibly shocked that they, kind of said, screw you to President Donald Trump, because, Northern Republicans, there's something about them. They just don't get it. Here's a more detailed look at the vote. Here we go. I'll show you the vote. Okay, these are the state house members, the nays and the yays. Okay, that's a more detailed look at it. The tiebreak, or it wasn't a tie-breaking vote, but it was. Let me show you this. This was a tweet. This is the Indiana state senator, a key swing vote. said that he was not, or he was going to vote no on the redistricting. This guy. Ugh. Yeah. Republican. Yeah. So Greg Good, he's a Republican there, but this is the voting record. I'll keep that up there for a little bit. Okay. So the state Senate was debating the new map on Thursday, and they ultimately voted on it. And Vice President J.D. Vance took to Twitter, took to X, and I think he sensed the GOP infighting or the GOP weakness. Okay. And he sensed that there was a weakness, and he warned Republican state Senate President pro tem Roderick Bray that dishonesty will not be rewarded in the future, and the Indiana GOP needed to pick a side. So here's what J.D. Vance put out there on X. He said, Rod Bray, the Senate leader in Indiana, has consistently told us he wasn't going to fight redistricting. And he was simultaneously whipping his members to vote against it. Okay, so he was fighting against redistricting. And this level of dishonesty cannot be rewarded, and the Indiana GOP needs to choose a side. Here's what Donald Trump Jr. said. If Indiana Republicans side with these never-Trumpers to do the dirty work of Democrats, I'll be spending a lot of time in Indiana next year campaigning against every single one of them. These rhino consultants sabotaging MAGA need to be rooted out of the GOP. So you got J.D. Vance, Donald J. Trump Jr., they saw the writing on the wall before the vote actually took place, which is why they took to social media and said what they said. It was a bullying tactic by J.D. and by Jr. to try to get them to vote yes on this redistricting because it's important. And he says, look, this is not going to be rewarded. I'm going to spend a lot of time in Indiana getting you guys to be primaried. So Bray, Roderick Bray did indeed choose a side, and he aligned with Dems. Okay, and he rejected the new map that would have gained us 2 congressional seats in next year's midterms. Okay, now the Republicans in the Indiana House had approved the map. The Senate just didn't do their job, right? For the GOP, like I said, they have a supermajority in the Senate. They've got a majority in the House. The House did their job. The Senate didn't do theirs. So President Donald Trump, he put out a lengthy Truth Social post, and I'll share it here with you right now. And I'll walk you through some of it. It's lengthy, but he put out a Truth Social post on Wednesday evening prior to the vote to try to pressure Roderick Bray, in getting this map passed. The bright side, here in Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker said if they voted yes on the map, that he was going to change his map and draw out the little Republicans that we have at a congressional level, the 3 that we have, that he was going to draw those guys out. Had Indiana voted yes on this map. Okay. So Bray is relishing, to use the president's own words in his Truth Social post here, that he is the only person in the United States of America who is against Republicans picking up extra seats. He's probably the only Republican who's against that, because I'll tell you right now, Republicans across the United States, they are sick of Democrats pulling the same garbage, and they said, hey, it's time for us now. It's time for revenge. Okay. And he seems to be this mightier than thou type Republican. He thinks he's better than everybody, and he's above the fray. No. Okay. Here's what Donald Trump said. This is the Truth Social post. I love the state of Indiana. I've won it, including the primary, 6 times, all massive majorities. Importantly, it now has a chance to make a difference. And this is what he put out on Wednesday. Donald J. Trump, the president, it now has to make a chance to make a difference in Washington, D.C. in regard to the number of House seats we have that are necessary to hold the majority against the radical left Democrats. Every other state has done redistricting willingly, openly, easily, Texas being one. Okay. There was never a question in their mind that this would be a win in the midterms for Republicans, and it would be a great thing, not only for the party, but for America itself. In all fairness, the Democrats have been doing redistricting for years. Donald Trump points this out. Look at how gerrymandered the map of Illinois is. They've been doing this for years. There's no reason why the Republicans can't do it a little bit. Unfortunately, Indiana Senate leader Rod Bray enjoys being the only person in the United States who is against the Republicans picking up extra seats. In Indiana's case, it would have been 2 of them. He's putting every ounce of his limited strength. I love Donald Trump. He's like going after his masculinity here. Like, you're just a state senator, dude. Like, you have very little strength. Very little strength. Just very limited strength. In asking his soon-to-be very vulnerable friends to vote with him. So this is a threat, probably a promise, that he's going to primary all of these Republicans who voted against it. And I shared with you the vote. Take note of those names. They won't be there come next election cycle. Okay, here's what Trump says again, or to continue with the Truth Social post. By doing so, he's putting the majority in the House of Representatives, Washington, D.C. at risk. At the same time, putting anybody in Indiana who votes against this redistricting, likewise at risk. So he's saying that we're going to primary you if you vote against this. The people of Indiana don't want the party of Sleepy Joe Biden, Ilhan Omar, Kamala Harris, or the rest to succeed in Washington. Okay, so the people of Indiana voted very largely in favor of President Donald Trump 6 times, as he said at the beginning of the Truth Social post. So them not voting for this map is not representative of their constituency. Okay, their constituency does not want a majority Democrats in the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. So, but Bray doesn't care. No. He's either a bad guy or a very stupid one, as President Donald Trump says. In any event, he and a couple of his friends will partner with the radical left Democrats. They found some Republican suckers, and they couldn't be happier that they did. And then he starts naming names in the Truth Social post, President Donald Trump. He says, guys like failed Senate candidate Mitch Daniels, who I opposed in his race against Senator Jim Banks, and Cam Savage, whoever that is, are fighting against the Republican Party. So he's calling out people in the Indiana GOP here. I would love to see that happen in Illinois. Like, Donald Trump, please take to Truth Social and start naming names in the Illinois GOP of the people who are fighting against the Republican Party all the way. We've got it here in the state of Illinois. It's ridiculous. I would love for Donald Trump to do this and name names in Illinois, but he did in Indiana. So Bray and his friends are favorite Republicans of Hakeem Jeffries, crazy Nancy Pelosi, crying Chuck Schumer. Anybody who votes against the redistricting and the success of the Republican Party in D.C. will be, I'm sure, met with MAGA primaries in the spring. So if the Republicans will not do what is necessary to save our country, they will eventually lose everything to the Democrats. So Rod Bray and his friends won't be in politics for long, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that they will not hurt the Republican Party in our country again. One of my favorite states, Indiana, will be the only state in the union to turn the Republican Party down. So what's next for the Indiana Republicans? They betrayed President Donald Trump. So primary challenges, lots of them. I've already been reading Fair Maps Indiana Action. This is a super PAC. They are planning to spend 7 figures primarying these lawmakers who voted against redistricting, and that's very exciting. So, yeah, shame on them. Illinois has been gerrymandering for Democrats for decades. And, you can say like, oh, you should be above the fray. You shouldn't get down, and dirty with these people who gerrymander. Look, if you don't, you're going to lose. This is politics. You don't have the spine for it. We're going to primary you. So good for President Donald Trump. This isn't good for the primaries or for the midterms. It's not good for the midterms in 2026 that Indiana refused to back the Republican Party here and back their constituency because they love Donald Trump in Indiana, the constituency. Clearly, they voted for him for six times with a large majority going to President Donald Trump. So, yeah, shame on you. You need to be primaried. All right, let's get to the top story today. Tina Peters. Okay, we are living in a moment here in American history where there's a set of rules for powerful politicians, and then there is a set of rules for ordinary Americans who question the integrity of our elections. How dare you question the integrity of our elections? We're going to throw you in jail. Okay? And we are living in a moment in history, in American history, and Colorado has got to let this woman go, Tina Peters. They've got to let her go. And this tension has been on full display with the recent announcement that Tina Peters has been pardoned at a federal level. I'm sure you've seen the headlines. Donald Trump says that he's pardoned Tina Peters. Should have happened right when he got into office. But Tina Peters, we're going to get into who she is. She was the former Mesa County, Colorado county clerk. And she was a Republican. Okay. And she just simply questioned some really odd things that happened in this Mesa County, Colorado election. Okay. And the mainstream media reports, corporate media, the political establishment, they are twisting the reality of what happened here. And they are defending this kind of double standard, this standard where we go after ordinary Americans who question the integrity of our elections, but we don't go after these powerful politicians who set the rules and cheat. Okay, so let's get into it. Tina Peters, she, along with many other Americans, okay, in 2020, there were unanswered questions about 2020, and I'm going to get to the specifics here because there was a software update and a lot of the election records were tampered with in that software update. And they showed this in a documentary, and subsequently Tina Peters was sentenced to jail for 9 years, okay, under the Biden administration. Okay, so in pursuit of transparency, she wanted to examine evidence, and she believed that she was exposing irregularities, and she had the evidence here. Okay. Colorado law enforcement didn't just quietly investigate her for exposing this. They raided her home. They charged her with 7 counts at a trial. A state jury convicted her of state crimes related to election equipment access and tampering, which is so fascinating because, look, folks, if we don't give our county clerks total access and election equipment access, if we don't give our county clerks that, then what the hell are we doing here? This is not a democratic process. We have to have our election officials be able to access this election equipment. So they went after her because she tapped into the election equipment and exposed this evidence, I think, of election fraud. She was sentenced to 9 years in prison. Okay. So really what she was charged with was obtaining the evidence. So she wasn't like charged with like fabricating evidence or fraud or tampering or like She was charged with tampering, but it was really more like the fact that she went and got the evidence. So they raided her home, charged her with all kinds of several counts at her trial, convicted her at a state level. And then the Biden administration got in on it and then charged her at a federal level as well. Okay, so it was that's a heavy sentence. Okay, 9 years. And mind you, this woman is elderly. Okay, I think she's like 70 now. So like she was in her 60s, late 60s, when she received her sentence, I believe. So December 11th, yesterday, President Donald Trump announced that he granted Tina Peters a full pardon. So in a Truth Social post, he called Peters a patriot who simply wanted to make sure our elections were fair and honest. And he criticized the Democrats for their relentless targeting of her. Now understand this. A presidential pardon is very powerful. Okay, presidential pardon should be a signal of, hey, like this is a very powerful statement. The president believes she is innocent and pardoned her. Colorado, they are saying, nope, we're going to keep her convictions. We're not going to overturn her convictions at a state level. But like the left wing, people are saying, oh, well, it doesn't matter. She's still in jail. And she is. She's still in jail for the state stuff, the state convictions. And they'll jump in and say, oh, it doesn't matter. She's still in jail. We're still winning. Okay. But putting an elderly woman in jail who was the county clerk, she tampered, which really means she just accessed equipment that she's supposed to run as a county clerk. Okay. And exposed evidence of irregularities, right? If that's like a win, I guess you put an elderly woman in jail who was doing her job. So let's be clear. Under the Constitution, the president can only pardon federal convictions. Okay, so there's whispers out there that like, okay, well, Donald Trump has to do more to get Tina Peters free, and not only pardon her federal convictions, but get the state to pardon her state convictions. I don't think the president can do that constitutionally. Here's what I will say. If this gets out of the jurisdiction, so those state convictions, that could get out of the jurisdiction of the state if she's deemed a federal witness. And if we start actually looking into what happened at a federal level in Colorado, what county is this? Mesa County? Yeah, Mesa County. If the feds take this case over and deem her a federal witness, we can get her out of state custody. And I think that's what they've got to do. The FBI has got to take this case over. So, like I said, I don't think, like, people are upset that President Donald Trump didn't get her out of the prison that she's in, serving out her time for the state convictions. And people are like calling on President Donald Trump, like, now get Tina Peters out. Like, he's done all he can do at this point with the pardon. Okay. It's going to be up to him to direct the FBI to take the case from Mesa County and to pull it out of their jurisdiction and investigate this federally. And I think that needs to happen because I think she stumbled upon something big. And we'll get to that. So ask yourself this. If the same actions here, and I'm going to get to what she exactly did, were taken by a Democrat election official in a deeply Democratic county, would that Democrat official be treated this way? She was simply doing her damn job. Okay. If a Democrat were to have done this and access and tap into the election equipment and expose the irregularities here, I don't think a Democrat would be serving 9 years in prison. Okay. And have state and federal convictions. I mean, they're treating this elderly woman who is doing her job as a county clerk as if she's like a hardened Venezuelan gang member trafficking drugs and trafficking young girls into the country, sex trafficking. Okay. That's the way they've treated her. Okay. So 9 years behind bars. 9 years. Now she hasn't served that in its entirety yet. And like I said, I hope she is deemed a federal witness and they take over jurisdiction. The FBI in the state case. Democrats, and if their allies are involved, and if they were to have done what she did, the system would have bent over backwards to protect them. Okay. If she was a Democrat, but because she was a Republican and she was looking into election irregularities, and tapping into the election equipment, she was given 9 years. Okay. So Tina Peters, she raised questions, ones that were shared by millions of Americans. Millions of Americans were questioning the election equipment and software updates and this election equipment's ability to tap into the internet. Okay. And she was thrown in prison. She was smeared as a conspiracy theorist. And the pardon is not automatically freeing her. Like I said, she's got that state sentence, and that's the current legal reality, is that Trump can't do anything at this point except deem her a federal witness, take that state case and elevate it to a level of federal jurisdiction. Okay, so Colorado's political leadership, including the governor, Jared Polis, they have openly said, nope, like they could. The pardon, like I said, is a very powerful statement. This is the president saying she's innocent. Most states, if they weren't just like Democrat hacks, most state officials would have probably not kept her incarcerated. But they've said and insisted that they're going to keep Tina incarcerated. And they've called Trump's action here, the pardon, lawless. Okay. Lawless, because Trump is trying to protect someone who raised questions about election integrity and just did her damn job as a county clerk. So the evidence. Okay, what was this? What did she exactly do? I'm going to play this clip here. This was a documentary that was released, I believe, in 2020. And they show you what she found as far as these election equipments and the software updates and the changing of election records. This evidence is being suppressed. And they didn't go after her for really like fabricating evidence. They went after her because she got it and obtained it, and the way she obtained it, if that makes sense. So take a listen to this, and it kind of explains what she found. Here we go.
The image is a perfect copy.
Yeah,
so
it's a
clone
copy
of the system.
Of a hard drive.
Forensic copy, bit for bit, of everything that was on the Mesa County computer.
I had some people who knew my capabilities that said, you really ought to look at this.
She's the clerk. So those systems operation for an election, it was her duty to preserve those election records.
And then when they compared the two images, they discovered that election records had been deleted or altered. 29,000 of them that are the fingerprints, the DNA, the blood type of how they got to the totals of the 2020 and the 2021 election.
Just to clarify, there were 2 forensic images taken of the Mesa County election server. One before the software update. Another image taken after. Then you were able to compare the two.
Everything that had been on that drive before this update was gone.
Looks like a cover-up. Low risk of being caught, low consequence if they are caught. I mean, there's a layered defense against transparency for the public.
The reason we know it was deliberate is because of Tina Peters.
Are those files important to elections?
Critical. Okay, so let me explain exactly, because they, had a lot of jargon. So there's election records. Think of them as like voter rolls, people who register to vote. Okay. And the election equipment had like a software update, and she had evidence. I mean, there was a picture before the software update and a picture after the software update. And the two images were very different. The election records were changed after this update. Okay. And this is what Mike Lindell was fighting against, that, you know, these election machines run by these companies, and that these companies were in cahoots with politicians to try to steal the 2020 election and change election records. And, you know, what they did was change the election records in such a way that inflated the numbers for Joe Biden. Okay, I'm just telling you, you know, how what was going on and what it looked like to Tina Peters at the time. And, you know, she was seeking truth. That's what she was doing as a county clerk. This was her job, okay, to ensure that those election records weren't tampered with and were the same after the software update. And simply because she went in and looked at the election records after the software update, that's what they charged her with, was because she went in and she looked at the election equipment, and they say she tampered with it. So yeah, she was raising questions, you know, and jailing her for that. That's tyranny. Okay, so what do we do now? We have to demand that state officials respect the rule of law and not punish political dissent. She wasn't even really politically dissenting. She was just pointing out that, hey, these election records are different now after the software update. And, you know, are these election records the change here is that contributing to these inflated numbers we're going to see in the 2020 election? You know, she's just raising questions. We have to allow questions and not jail people when they raise questions. Especially, you know, our county clerks. So the election has to be transparent and secure. And every American, conservative, liberal, they have the right to ask questions without fear of imprisonment. So we have to continue to support President Donald Trump. He's willing to stand up when nobody else would. Pardoned her. But we can't let this stand as normal, that we jail our county clerks for simply going into the election equipment and pointing out discrepancies and pointing out irregularities. Like, hey, the election records, the voter rolls here, they should stay the same, you know, but they're very different after the software update. Why is that? And could it be used to inflate the 2020 election numbers for Joe Biden? You know, we can't let this stand as normal, jailing people for finding things, okay, and asking questions about those things. So in closing, the pardon of Tina Peters isn't just about one person. It's not just about Tina Peters. This is about whether the American people and our county clerks are going to get a fair shake in our American justice system, and if they can do their jobs and operate in integrity. So, like I said, she was charged in Colorado, and she's not being released on the state convictions. They could probably do it. You know, like, they have the ability to do it because Donald Trump pardoned her at a federal level, and like they could review her state convictions and get her out tomorrow if they wanted to. But of course, the Democrats in Colorado won't do that. They want to keep her as a political prisoner, as a trophy. And I've read that they might be looking into making her a material witness and taking this case from the state and taking her into federal custody. And I hope that's true. And I hope when she gets out, if she gets out, that they protect her and put her into witness protection. And I hope that the FBI takes this case. I really do. Because I think that this is fascinating. the software update changing the election records and the voter rolls. It was one way, the software update happened, and then those election records were not the same. And she is to preserve those election records. And because she went in, did her job, double checked, they imprisoned her for 9 years. So Colorado Democrat AG, Attorney General Phil Weiser, he announced that he's refusing to release Tina Peters after President Donald Trump pardoned her. Like I said, they can definitely do that, I think, because it's such a powerful statement that the president believes that she's innocent. But take a listen.
AG Weiser, one final question for you here. Practically speaking, what happens if representatives of Tina Peters and or the president show up at the state prison in Pueblo tonight or tomorrow and say Tina Peters is coming with us? Will she be released by the state of Colorado while this plays out?
No, there's no legal authority for any federal government action to take a prisoner who's in state custody lawfully, having been tried, convicted, and sentenced. This is an important principle of our Constitution. And everyone who says they care about the rule of law, about public safety, and our Constitution needs to care about this issue. Ben Franklin said when he left the Constitutional Convention, we have a republic as long as we can keep it. This is one of those moments.
Attorney General Phil Weiser, thank you very much for your time. We'll talk again soon. AG Weiser, one.
Okay, that hairline. You should be convicted for that hairline, my guy. Phil Weiser. Okay, so Phil Weiser announcing that he's going to refuse to release Tina. And it even sounds like he's going to refuse to release Tina if they make her a material witness in a case against Colorado. So that's what really needs to happen. The FBI needs to take this over, and they need to investigate Colorado for what they did in the 2020 election and this equipment that updated and changed the voter rolls. Okay. So that's what needs to happen. Will it? I don't know. I'm not really too excited about the Trump administration's FBI. I don't think Kash Patel has been doing a great job. Don't think Pam Bounty has been doing a great job. So this should have been done months ago, probably like day 2, 3, pardoning Tina Peters. It should have been done months ago, and we should have launched more cases into counties that had these types of irregularities. And there's been counties all over the country with these types of irregularities. So Carrie Lake, she says that the same people who are behind the election malfeasance in Colorado are the same people who threw Tina Peters in prison. So tell me how that's fair, right? So the same people who she's kind of accusing of, the software update. I mean, that's what was implied here, that Tina was accusing people of, hey, that's as soon as the software update happened, the voter rolls changed and the election records changed. And why is that? And, here's what Carrie Lake says about the pardon of Tina Peters. Here we go.
I tell you, Tina Peters is a really good woman. I know her personally. I consider her a friend. Her son died in the line of duty, active duty, Navy SEAL, I believe he was. And to throw her behind bars, the same corrupt people in Colorado who were behind the election malfeasance. And when she was trying to say, we're going to collect the evidence and make sure that we are responsible to the voters and the taxpayers, they throw her in jail for that, in prison for that. She's a woman who's got health problems, and I'm afraid if we don't get her out, that she'll die behind bars. This is an unfair sentence. It's ridiculous. Same thing. They threw the book at her for ridiculous non-crime. The same thing they did with the J6ers. And, come full circle, one of the judges who handled so many of the J6 cases, you might remember him. He was the judge who fell asleep during their trials. And then when he woke up, threw the book at these J6ers who didn't do anything wrong except protest, peacefully. And so I have that same judge over all the cases that have been launched against our agency. When they get somebody in an agency and we are starting to clean things up, that's when the deep state starts throwing out malicious lawsuits. We've got 5 or 6 malicious lawsuits. They want to tie us up in court. They want to do this with all the other agencies as well. Anywhere where they're bringing reform, they want to get them tied up, tangled up in court with judges who, like mine, actually threw the book at these J6ers for simply protesting at the Capitol.
Yeah. She didn't really do anything wrong. She was the county clerk at the time, and she accessed the election equipment and noticed an irregularity and brought that up. Then all of a sudden, she found herself in jail for 9 years. So, yeah, I hope that, Cash Patel, FBI get their crap together and they open a case against Mesa County, Colorado, and do an investigation, charge them, and charge whoever needs to be charged with the software update and the changing of these election records. What she had found, these images of the change. And they need to make her a material witness and then get her out of there, and get the state of Colorado to release her as a material witness and then protect her in witness protection. All right, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. You're listening to Conservative Cat Show. I've got one more story for you today. One more. Okay, so this is taking effect January 1st. It was that Medicaid omnibus type bill, Senate Bill 2437 in Illinois, over 500 pages, end of session, rammed through in the middle of the night. One of those Christmas tree bills. I like to call them Christmas tree bills. So a Christmas tree bill is where everybody kind of piles on and gets what they want in Medicaid. So like very rare diseases being covered by Medicaid. And that's not fair. Okay. If you've got, and I get it, like your constituent might email you, you have one person who has this rare medical disease and they're on Medicaid and Medicaid isn't covering it. I get it. And this is what happens when you feminize politics and get a bunch of feminazis in there and, men without any kind of cojones. You operate off of the one. Okay. And that's not how you're supposed to look at it. Medicaid, it is a mass program. And when you start covering these obscure diseases or obscure conditions, you're not serving everybody on Medicaid. Like, that's not what Medicaid's all about. Okay, so you're not getting the most out of the taxpayers' dollars for people with, conditions that are more, and that might come off as heartless, but this is the design of the program. Okay, and I want you to grab your Bibles and your common sense because we are digging into this bill. So the omnibus, this was an ambush. Okay, Illinois, when lawmakers treat it like it's a Christmas tree bill and an omnibus, and they put all kinds of things in there, they just shove everything into this bill. It's almost like teenagers and how they treat laundry. Okay, they just shove everything into one pile and they spritz it with Febreze and they pray that it doesn't smell. And that you don't come into the room and say, hey, you have to do laundry, right? That's kind of what this bill is all about. So State Representative Bill Howder, a Republican, sane person in Springfield, he said it plainly. He says, we hate omnibus bills. We get frozen out of the final decision making as Republicans and in the supermajority, but also you can't really tell what's in it until it's finally passed. And it's just Christmas trees. Everybody is hanging ornaments on this tree for these obscure, diseases and things like that. There's, I think there was like a obscure neurological disease that like only affects like 0.00001% of people. And I guess Medicaid's going to cover that. State Medicaid is going to cover that. Like I said, Medicaid is a combination of federal funds and state funds. Okay, so Pritzker and company, they lock the GOP out. They pull the blinds, and then they stitch together this Frankenstein bill with duct tape and their ideology and your tax dollars. Okay, that's what they do in these omnibus bills. So that is transparency, Illinois style. Okay, meaning there is none. There is no transparency in this bill, and it's a Frankenstein bill. So now that you understand the structure of the bill, let me get into some of what's in it. Okay, so here's where things get spicy. Senate Bill 2437 creates a brand new category of non-citizens eligible for Medicaid-style benefits. Asylum seekers and immigrants who flee human rights abuses in nations, which is pretty much every country, because as I've said before, we are a Christian nation. Our culture is superior. That's why everybody wants to come here, because our values are superior. And they're not coming here for the hot dogs and the cheeseburgers. Okay, they're coming here because Christian values work. Christian morality works. So people come here and flee their nation. And that's pretty much everybody who, every nation has human rights abuses outside of the United States, really. So we're seeing more and more of it here in the United States as we abandon our Christian ideology and roots. And founding, we have a straight up satanic worshipers in government. And we need to clean that up, because you see the human rights abuses. I would say what happened to Tina Peters is a human rights abuse. So we do see it here in America, but not to the extent of other nations. Why? Because they aren't Christian nations. We are a Christian nation, so therefore we are superior. But these asylum claimers and these immigrants who are fleeing human rights abuses, they're going to get Medicaid. Now, that sounds compassionate. It sounds sweet. But, here's what they're not telling you. That this is taxpayer-funded coverage for illegal immigrants. So these asylum claim people, they're not true asylum claim. Like, their asylum claim is ultimately going to get denied. So these are the people who border jumped under the Biden administration, the U.S.-Mexico border, right then and there. Like, if you're a border jumper, you don't get to seek asylum. You have to come from the country. So say like Yemen, where they chop your hands off for being a woman. You're fleeing Yemen, you're coming to the United States. You have to come straight to the United States. You don't get to go to the U.S.-Mexico border and then jump it. Your asylum claim would be denied if that's what you did. And they did all that under the Biden administration because that border was open. So really what we're going to be doing is taxpayer-funded coverage for illegal immigrants, or immigrants whose claims are ultimately going to be denied. You claim asylum, and the federal government under President Donald Trump, they're going to ultimately deny that asylum, but you get Illinois Medicaid anyway, because you're an asylum seeker. And you were granted that asylum under the Biden administration open border, and they were taking a piss all over the asylum federal code that allows you asylum. They weren't abiding by it. They were just giving everybody asylum. Okay. Asylum is a very specific criteria you have to meet. You have to be fleeing a religious or political persecution. You have to come directly from that country to the United States. You can't be a border jumper. Okay. But Illinois, they know that there are asylum seekers under the Biden administration. They're here illegally, and ultimately Trump is going to deny their claims and get them the hell out of here. But they're hoping to give them Illinois Medicaid before that happens. And that means taxpayer dollars. Okay. Then they go further, and this is kind of vague. They say if there's documented abuses in these nations, well, that's like half the globe. Like I said, most of the globe, they've got documented abuses. Why? Because they have cultures and religions that are inferior to our Christian values, our Western values. And they treat their people like crap in other countries. So this is kind of vague. Like, that's half the globe. Okay. Just because you experiences abuses, that doesn't automatically mean that you get some sort of temporary status here. Okay, so Illinois Medicaid, boom. If you come from a country that is a crap hole country, okay. So Illinois, we already fund like Medicaid for senior illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants, and undocumented pregnant women. So this just stacks another layer on top of that. And taxpayer dollars are going to illegals. That's for healthcare, which is a 70-30 issue. 70% of Americans don't like that. Okay. So another thing this bill does is the doula thing. So you can get a doula. This is like a midwife kind of. Doula is somebody who like walks you through pregnancy. They're very fancy. I don't have a doula, can't afford it. Okay. But they want to cover it for Medicaid patients, people on Medicaid. This is ritzy, and this is beyond just childbirth and receiving care in the hospital for childbirth. Okay, this is, if you want my opinion, I don't think Medicaid should be funding pregnancy and childbirth at all. Okay, because this is a choice you enter into, obviously. It takes two to make a baby. It's a choice that you make. And if you can't afford, and you're on Medicaid taxpayer-funded healthcare, and you can't afford, healthcare, you probably can't afford a family. And why should the taxpayer pay for your family that you can't afford? I don't know. Maybe that's a bit extreme, but whatever. It goes a step further, though. So not only are you taxpayers are paying in Illinois for people's doulas, which is somebody that holds your hand during pregnancy or coaches you on pregnancy and childbirth. It's like a coach, okay? Not only that, but we're funding doulas for abortions, which I didn't even know was an industry. It sounds like an oxymoron because doulas are supposed to specialize in childbirth, not specialize in killing children. Right? So I guess there's abortion doulas out there who hold your hand during chemical abortions or during, procedures, the medical or the, sucking of your baby out or the taking the forceps and clamping down on the limbs and pulling them out. So we're going to be paying for that as taxpayers. This is just so sad. So yes, this is going to go into effect January 1st, Senate Bill 2437. This is an assault on truth. This is not protecting stewardship. This is not protecting life. Illinois Democrats, they want to legislate morality using your money. And if you choose life, if you choose truth, then to hell with you. Okay. But I'm going to keep exposing the corruption, claws out, faith up. And that's just too far. Letting or having taxpayers pay for somebody to not just your abortion, because Medicaid pays for the abortion itself, or the medicine, or the chemicals that you take in order to have the abortion or the chemical abortion. But it goes a step further and it pays for someone to hold your hand during that process. That's just too far. I think that most Illinoisans would say that. All right. That's going to do it for you, or for me. I appreciate you being here. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend. Be blessed. We'll be back again Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time. Love you.